Hey everyone, Boardgame Brody here with Meeple Mountain. I have a brand new copy of Excavation Earth, an economic hand management game by Mighty Boards. This game recently came out this year and I want to tell you 6 things that you need to know about this game. Number 1, the theme. Well, the story goes that a century from now the Earth is left humanless. Races from other solar systems value artifacts from extinct races left behind, and in the game each player plays as one of these alien races who are exploring Earth trying to excavate rare human artifacts and curate the ultimate art collection to sell off. Players will be finding these artifacts and then selling them in the market that values that particular artifact the most. Number 2, the gameplay. Each player starts the game with 6 multi-use cards plus 3 more used exclusively for movement. Players are trying to make the most money by receiving artifacts laid out on the board. There are 5 regions total, with each one being associated with a certain color matching that type of artifact. Players will be finding different artifacts in these regions to sell somewhere, but first, each different artifact is sampled by the founder. This doesn't take an action, but players will place a cube that represents a security guard in their gallery. And depending on how many samples a player collects in a certain row or a certain column, they will score the listed points at the end of the game. This is like a set collection type mechanic in the game. Now, not all artifacts are as abundant as others, and there is a number on each certain spot showing how many of these types of artifacts there are in the game. When an artifact is excavated, it will go into the cargo hold, which are represented by these lighter spots. If acquired from the black market, it can go in either the cargo hold or the hidden hold, which are the dark spots. The artifacts in any of these locations can be sold to any interested buyer shown by a meeple of that color in one of these locations shown on the top of the board, or by the black market when smuggling. A white buyer will always represent a buyer interested in all 5 types of artifacts. Each market shown on the top of the board will cycle through different buyers interested in different types of artifacts. In the game, you can take actions to manipulate what buyers go into certain markets. 4 buyers are allowed in each market, and when an additional one is added, the buyer on the bottom will fall off and is returned to the supply. This supply is organized by popularity, and when a buyer is taken from this track, it always is taken from the bottom. And when a buyer is returned to the supply, it is returned to the highest empty space of its color. When more buyers of a certain type are used on the board, it will cause a higher payout. And when more buyers are in the supply on the track, then it will cause a lower payout. Now, when you actually sell to a buyer, you will want to make sure that you have one of your trader cubes present in that market, as it will provide you the profit of selling. When you have one of your explorers in the space of a market that you want to sell to, your trader cube located in that market will get promoted to an envoy and moves to the matching command center on the mothership board. Each round, whoever has the majority in each of these command centers will score extra points. During the second and third rounds, command cards will be placed to certain command centers, and you can recall your envoy cube to activate the action shown on that card. But then you might not have the majority for that round, so it causes some important decisions to be made. Number 3, the game flow. The game plays over 3 rounds, and each round consists of 3 phases. The first phase is the preparation phase, which is skipped in round 1, so I will actually explain it last. The second phase is the actions phase. Players take turns in the order of the turn order track. On a player's turn, they will take 2 actions, being the same action twice or 2 different actions. Players can continue taking turns until all players have passed, but a player can perform 8 different unique actions, and I will explain these soon. The third phase in the round is the scoring phase. The 3 command centers are then scored based on the envoy majorities, and winners receive credits depending on the round, and more credits are awarded as the game goes on. After the scoring phase, you'll go back to the preparation phase, which will enable command abilities for rounds 2 and 3. Buyers are reset. Any market with 4 buyers will push the bottom one off, and all markets at this time will have 3 buyers present. For each forecast card, 3 artifacts of that color are drawn. 2 are placed out in their dig sites, and the 3rd in the black market. All cubes then that were placed on the surveyor forecasts are returned to that player. If it's the second round, then the forecast cards are discarded and replaced with new ones. Turn order is redetermined by the initiative token that each player has taken, with players who don't have one maintaining the same order relative to the others. Players are then dealt out 8 cards to perform a draft, choosing 2 cards at a time and passing the others to their left, repeating this until each player selects 6 new cards. These cards are added to any leftover cards from the past round. All 3 travel cards are also retrieved and placed into the hands of each player. Lastly, for this phase, the black market is cycled by placing the top tile on the bottom of the stack. Number 4, player actions. This is everything you will be doing in the game to change things up towards your strategy or away from another player's fortune. To travel, you will discard a card showing a number of fuel icons. This is how many moves that you can perform with any of your explorers. To excavate, you can discard a certain colored card to pick up artifacts in that region when you have explorers there. If you have 2 different explorers in the same region, then each can excavate 1 artifact where they are located. The market action lets you discard a card that matches the icon of the market that you are affecting, and you will have to have an explorer present in that market space. You will then assign a cube to the market as a trader. You can add a white buyer from the supply to the back of the queue, and then you will add a buyer of any color of your choice from the supply to the back of that same queue. This action will change the market prices and will also change which market players might prefer to sell to. To sell, you will need to discard any card from your hand, and that player will choose a region to sell artifacts of, up to 3 of that type. The players will choose 1, 2, or 3 markets to sell to that has at least 1 buyer of that type. Each market also needs to have one of your traders present, a cube that can be placed when taking the market action. The credits awarded for the sale is determined by the popularity level of that region. For example, the region with the fewest will have 9 credits, where the region with the second fewest will award 5. 2 additional credits are awarded for each buyer that matches the color that is present in that market. Lastly, if you are selling at 2 or 3 different markets this turn, then you will gain 3 or 8 additional credits. Using multiple markets can also give you additional cards to use this round. All buyers used will then be moved to the mothership. If buyers are present already, then they are returned back to the supply. 1 trader in each of the markets that you used are then moved to the corresponding command centers. You will discard the artifacts that you just sold, not to ever return to the game. The command action has you discard a card with the matching market to add a cube to the matching market to become a trader, and then either add a cube to a command center, making them an envoy, or removing a cube already there to take the command ability displayed on an available card. The smuggle action is done by discarding a card that its icon matches one of the black markets. To do this, you will need one of your explorers present in that same black market. The player can then offload up to 2 artifacts of different regions, receiving credits equal to its listed value, and placing that artifact on the bottom of the matching black market stack. Or the player can acquire 2 artifacts present on top of the stack, spending credits equal to its listed value plus 1. These can then be placed in your cargo hold or in your hidden hold. And remember to take samples of these newly acquired artifacts, if you would like. To survey, you'll choose a card with a certain color in your hand to use to replace a surveyor forecast card that doesn't have a cube already on it. Place one of your cubes on that card, meaning no one else can move it this round, and then claim the lowest initiative token available to be able to get a better position on the position track. Lastly, draw 2 artifacts from the supply matching the color of the played card. One goes on a dig site and the other is either shuffled back into the supply pile, or the player can pay double the listed value to buy and store it in their own cargo hold. If bought, then remember that you can sample it if you would like. Lastly, to pass, you don't discard any cards. If you have cards left over, you can choose 2 to keep for the next round. Once you pass, you will not take any more turns during the action phase this round. And that's everything you will be doing in the game. Number 5, faction abilities. Each player plays as a certain alien race, which gives that player an ability that all other players cannot perform. Players can use their ability to form a better strategy to take advantage of certain aspects of the game to make more powerful moves. Each faction adds something unique, and the players can change from faction to faction each time playing the game to play a different strategy. Number 6, my thoughts on the game. So you might think from the explanation that the game is pretty straightforward. I would say fair enough. I thought so too until I played the game and found out all the crunchy thinking, overlapping choices that could steer me one way or another. And this is great that the explanation feels straightforward because you know what the end goal is, but when playing you realize how many choices there are to get to that goal. And that is why this game has a good amount of replayability. You don't get as bored with the game because you're strategizing and planning what you're actually doing every time that you play the game. The game can also increase in depth. Players can draft their starting 6 cards each round, which requires a lot of brain power because you're drafting for a certain color or a certain icon, but it's really hard to really plan with the cards because it takes a lot of brain space, but also because the game is always changing. The markets are being manipulated by all players to suit their needs or wants, and it could hurt another player's plans. When playing the game, you will find yourself taking the best planned moves, and then with the remaining cards in the end of that round, you will determine which other actions might be the most efficient for you to gain something. Or players can play cards simply to block or change something that possibly will hurt another player. But having 6 different actions gives players a lot of options. The cards that you have available in your hand will help you to either diminish some of those actions for now, or other cards will make some of those actions more powerful for the time being. And you might need to take advantage of that. Players will need to manage their cubes, using them for different facets in the game. They will want to gather as many samples, including finding rare artifacts, sometimes only found in the black market, gaining them some in-game set collection points. They will be changing the market to sell their artifacts for the most money, and also trying to win area majority in each command center. This area majority thing is pretty awesome because if you're not in the race, then you can always take the action to take your cube off of that command center to take the action on the card in front, which can sometimes be very powerful. The game provides excellent components with double-layered player boards to help with organization. The game provides meeples of various types that matches different colors. Ultimately, this game provides an economic type Euro game using multi-use cards. The game can feel tight, planning and taking advantage of the current state on the board can give advantages, and the game plays in 3 rounds, so it doesn't feel like you're playing forever. And you never feel like you just built up your engine in the game and you never had time to use it. That never happened. So gather up these artifacts with your family and friends in Excavation Earth by Mighty Boards. Again, this is Boardgame Brody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around and check out some other board game reviews to see what you might want to get to the table.